Morning, evening, afternoon, from wherever you're watching. You're welcome back once again to the Mickey Mouse Class, a channel solely dedicated to demystifying mathematics, making complex problems look easy. Today we'll be looking at an interesting topic, compound interest, which was requested by Love from India. Shout out to Love from India. Keep practicing. I know you are enjoying the series. So you requested for compound interest. So here we go with compound interest. Now, the first thing you need to know the difference. Some days earlier, we looked at simple interest. Now, the difference between compound interest and simple interest is that this is the difference. For simple interest, the interest, the principal there, does not change. It is constant. No matter the number of years you are asked to find, the principal remains the same. But for compound interest, the principal changes at every year. The interest calculated for the previous year is added to the principal. That's the difference between compound interest and simple interest. Compound interest is like an exponential increase in the interest. Some will tell you that it's interest on interest. That is what compound interest is. Now, let's look at, for example, let me show you the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Now, for example, a man invested maybe, let's say, $10,000 at 3% or at, let's say, 5% for 3 years. For 3 years. Now, if I say invested $10,000 at now simple interest, if we are to look for simple interest for year one, for the first year, our interest will be, remember, principal times rate times time, all over 100%. That's $10,000 times the time for 3 years times 5 over 100. This and this we cancel out. So we are left with 5 times 3, that's 15. We are left with $150. $1,500. Yes, is it 1,500? Yes, $1,500 at the end of the 3 years. For the 3 years, that's $1,500. Now, if I want to do it now, 5% of this $10,000 is $500. So for the first year is $500. The second year, the interest remains the same. It doesn't change. That's the difference between compound interest and simple interest. It will also be $500, and the third year will be $500 also. That's what amounted to $1,500, which I calculated or I computed using this formula. But for compound interest, for the first year, the interest will be $500, 5% of $10,000. That's $500. Now, the next year, for the second year, the principal will be added, or the interest will be added to the principal. The principal was $10,000. Now, the new principal, let me say MP, for the second year will now be $10,000 plus $500. The interest from the previous year, that will give us $10,500. So what I will now say is, I will say 5% of $10,000. That will give us $525. That's the 10% of $10,500. Now, for the third year, the same thing will happen. We will now have a new principal for the third year. For the third year, second year, new principal, it will now be $10,500 plus the previous year interest. That's 525. We add them together. This is 2. This is $11,025. $11,000 thereabouts. Now, what we will now have is, we will now take 5% of this amount. 5% of this amount. 5% of this will give us that's $551.25. 551. So you see the difference between a compound interest and simple interest. That's the first distinction. For you to understand compound interest, you must understand the distinction between compound interest and simple interest. Compound interest, the money grows exponentially. The new principal increases, and how does it increase? By the interest of the previous year. So you see the same amount, but if this is computed for simple interest, it will only use $1,500. That's $500 each year. But this, for compound interest, you have a higher interest for 500, 525, 551, and the total interest, the compound interest, will be higher than this. All right, so we have seen the distinction between compound interest and simple interest. So let's look at some questions. The first one says a man invested $1,000 at an interest rate of 5% per year, compounded annually. Take note of this word, compounded annually, for 3 years. Now our compound interest, CI, will be equals to amount minus principal, the amount that's money generated, and the amount is given by the formula principal into bracket 1 plus R over N raised to the power of NT. Now the P here is the principal, the R is the interest, the annual interest, and N is the number of times this amount was compounded. If you are, for example, in this question, compounded annually, that's once every year. So our N here will be 1. The T is the number of years. So from here, let's solve this question. Let's look for the amount first. So our amount will be equals to, our principal is $1,000. So that's 1,000 into bracket 1 plus the rate is 5%. So that's 5 over 100. We can convert it to decimal, 0.05 over our N is 1, since it's compounded annually. So that's raised to the power of 1 times the time there is for 3 years. 1 times 3, that's 3. So this becomes A is equals to 1,000 into bracket, this is 1.05 raised to the power of 3. So let's look for 1.05 raised to the power of 3. Okay, so that will give us 1,000 times 1.157625. So our amount, when we multiply this, that will be 1157.625 or 63 dollars. So our compound interest, will now be 1,157.353 or 0.63 minus 1,000. That will give us $157.63. So that's the compound interest, $157.63. So that's the compound interest at the end of 3 years. All right, let's look at the second example. It says find the compound interest on $650 in 5 years at 4% per annum. The same way we did the last one, we'll find the amount first. Our amount is equals to our principal 1 plus R over N NT. So from here we know that so our amount will be equals to, the principal is $650, so that's 650 into bracket 1 plus, since this is per annum, that means it was compounded annually. So that's our R is 4%. That's 0.04 over 1 times our N is 1 times the number of years is 5. So 1 times 5 is 5. So this is 650 into bracket 1.04 raised to the power of 5. So this will give us 650 times 1.21665 thereabouts. That's 1.04 raised to the power of 5 is this, times 650 will give us 790.824. Okay, so now this is our amount. Now remember our compound interest. Compound interest is equals to principal minus, amount minus principal. Amount minus principal, which is equals to $790.824 minus $650. So which will give us about 140.83. So 140.83 thereabout is the compound interest on $650. All right, let's look at this third example. It says find the compound interest on 2,000 naira at annual interest rate of 6%, compounded monthly. Take note of this word, compounded monthly. What we have been doing before was per annum, compounded annually, but this one is now different, compounded monthly for 2 years. So the first thing, we look for our amount, which is our principal, into bracket 1 plus R over N raised to the power of NT. Now from here, our principal, which is the original amount, is 2,000 naira, $2,000 from there. That's $2,000 into bracket 1 plus our R is the rate at which of the principal at which the compound interest will be generated, which is 6%. 6% is 0.06 over, now take note, over our N, because this is monthly. Now how many months do you have in a year? That's 12. So our N will be 12. That's divided by 12. Raised to the power of our N is 12 times the time, number of years, which is 2. So this becomes $2,000. 1 plus, this should be 0.05. This is 24 raised to the power of 24. This is $2,000 to back at 1.0. Okay, this is 005. 005. So this is 1.005 raised to the power of 24. So when we calculate this will give us $2,000 times 1.12749, and when we multiply that, we'll get $2,254.94 or 98. Now this is our amount. Now our compound interest, remember we said our compound interest is equals to amount minus the principal. So the principal is 2,000. So the amount which you just found is $2,254.98 minus $2,000, which will give us $254.98. So this is the compound interest on this amount, compounded monthly for 2 years. All right, let's look at this last example. Says find the compound interest on $5,000 deposited at an interest rate or with an interest rate of 4%, compounded. Look at this word here, quarterly. Now for 5 years. This word here is key. So from here, our principal is $5,000. The rate there, our R is 4%. Now our N, because there are 4 quarters in a year, So January, February, March, 1/4. April, May, June, 2nd quarter. July, August, September, 3rd quarter. October, November, December, 4th quarter. So our N is 4 and our T here is 5 years. So we look for the amount. Amount is equals to, in our usual style, principal into bracket 1 plus R over N raised to the power of NT. So we have found out that our principal is $5,000. So we put 5,000 into bracket 1 plus our R is the rate, which is 4%. 4% is 4 over 100, that's 0.04 over our N. Quarterly, our N is 4. Just like I told you, 4 quarters in the year. So this is 4 times the number of years there, 5. So this is 4 times 5. So this becomes 5,000 into bracket 1 plus 0.04. Okay, that's 0.01 raised to the power of 20. So this is 5,000 1.01, okay, raised to the power of 20. When you raise this up, you will get 1.22019 times our 5,000, and when you multiply it, you get 6,100.95. 6,100.95. Now, I haven't done that. The next thing we will now do, we will now find we have found our amount. We'll find our compound interest. Compound interest is equals to our amount minus the principal. So this becomes our $6,100.95 minus $5,000. That will give us about $1,100.95. So $1,100.95. That is the compound interest. All right, I hope you have enjoyed today's class. Just like in our usual style, before we go, here's some list of take-home fun that you can practice at your leisure time. Says find the compound interest on $3,000 at an annual interest rate of 3% compounded daily for 1 year. Take note of this, compounded daily. That means our N will be 365 for 1 year. So the second one, calculate the amount on $5,060 for 2.5 years at 6.5% per annum compounded interest if the interest is paid half yearly. Now the second part B of this question says how much interest is earned throughout this period. Okay, if you have enjoyed today's class, give us a like, share our videos, tell your friends about the Mickey Mouse class, a channel where mathematics is demystified and complex problems made easy. If you are here to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on wonderful content on the channel. And if there is any aspect of mathematics you want us to treat, put it in the comment section, just like Love from India put in the previous video on creating a video on compound interest. Put it in the comment section and I will attend to it. Let me also know the answers of this take-home fun in the comment section. Till we meet again, keep practicing. Remember, mathematics is fun. See you at the top. Shalom.